Good afternoon, everyone. We are here for the drought monitoring webinar series. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Four Corners seasonal outlook and forecast. We have a four-part series in the webinar. During the presentation, you may enter your questions in the chat, or at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A sessions. At that time, you may raise your hand to ask your question. We'll also have a survey poll at the end. This is for us to help collect information and get webinar topics for future events. The Drought Monitoring Webinar Series is a collaborative effort with our guest speakers, the Drought Learning Network, the Navajo Sustainable Ag Project, and the Southwest Climate Hub. The Southwest Climate Hub links USDA research and program agencies in the regional delivery of tools and information of agricultural producers and professionals. We are located at the Jornada Experimental Range in Las Cruces, New Mexico. The Drought Learning Network is a peer-to-peer knowledge exchange between climate service providers and resource managers. The main goal of the Drought Learning Network is to gather and share lessons learned from drought events to improve responses for future droughts. And I'll turn it over to Mikkel.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Helena. My name is Mikkel Lantana Silversmith. I am the project coordinator for the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about the NSA project. In short, we do call it the NSA project. We are funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Native Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. Our main goal is to help producers with resources to help them improve their operations, both profitability and sustainability. We deliver workshops based on the reviews that we gather from producers through webinars and through in-person workshops to kind of get an idea of what our producers want to see more as far as resources involved. So kind of give you guys some pointers and some examples that we provide. Is one of them is livestock record keeping, sheep and goat vaccination health that we just provided, not just last week, but the week before. We did provide cattle marketing and more. So during these workshops and webinars, we are really appreciative to our project partners, the May College Land Grant Office, our NMSU CES specialist, and our folks here at the Climate Hub for always helping us develop agriculture-based related workshops for our producers. And this is just one of them. So like Helena said, we do have a 4-part drought series. So we hope to see you guys more involved in all of our webinars. So this is all for you as far as resources goes. Not to mention, we do have a conservation planning program that we offer in collaborative effort with the May College Land Grant Office. We assist ranchers and farmers with helping them develop a basic conservation plan. And I can discuss that more in depth. I have my contact information that we are going to share at the end of our webinar tonight. So if you have any questions regarding the conservation plans or have any questions regarding setting up a workshop, definitely get a hold of me. I would really appreciate it. And moving on to another goal of ours is increasing our producers' knowledge in USDA programs. I'm sure all of you are well aware of NRCS and FSA programs under the USDA. We host virtual resource fairs to give to our USDA local field office the stage to share some of their local programs that producers can apply for locally. And we also are going to be having one of our FSA executive officers share her platform as well in this series. So lastly, our goal is to help increase local fresh fruits production in the areas that we serve, both in McKinley, San Juan, and Cibola counties. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it back to Helena. Helena?
Thanks, Mikkel. So I'll ask Erin to share her screen and turn it over to her. She is the Arizona State climatologist.
Hi, Helena. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you both for your kind opportunity to share. Hopefully, everybody can see the screen. I'm going to just confirm that we can. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so
Yes.
much. So my talk this afternoon is to kind of give an overview of where we've stood in the Four Corners area and what it looked like last year, what we may expect this year with our temperatures and our precipitation. And that really plays a role into how we can see what might happen with drought and so on. So we'll take a look. And this is looking at last year, so 2023. This is looking at the Southwest. So we're looking at the Four Corners area as well as those states and just kind of getting a sense as to what happened January through December with temperature. And so when we're looking at these colors, they give us a sense as to was it kind of average, was a little bit warmer, was a little bit colder. So we may all remember last winter. So January, February, March, last winter was really, really wet. And part of that means that it was really, really cold. And in fact, so you look at January was about average. February and March, much colder. So this is in the Southwest region. So it wasn't just Arizona, it wasn't just New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. It's all the entire region looking at that temperature. April was about average. Then May was warmer. But then for June, this I remember the most. Last June, typically in June, we need it to be hot in order to start building the monsoon ridge, to kind of build in the monsoon season, maybe in July and August. And that really was delayed because last June was so cold. Now, with last June being so cold, we had just the opposite in July, and we had temperatures that broke records across the Southwest. My next slide will show you some of those. But you can see those oranges when we're looking at July and August and September, and that's showing you that they were in the top 10% warmest Julys, August, and Septembers. And so last July for the Southwest region, it was the second warmest July on record. August was the 7th, and September was the 11th. So very, very warm temperatures for July, August, and September. October, November kind of backed off a little bit, but they were still very, very warm. And then, of course, December was exceptionally warm. So we had that kind of condition, really hot temperatures as we ended up last year. So I do want to show you kind of the records from July. And it really, the situation that set this up was we had a ridge of high pressure that stayed in place. So you can kind of see it in that colorful picture with the reds kind of in the Four Corners region. And that ridge of high pressure just stayed in place and spread. And it was exceptionally hot. Part of the reason that happened was because it was an El Nino year. And as we're moving into El Nino in that summer, it starts to get hot, not just in the Southwest, but all across the world. So that's part of it. And you can see some of that impact here. So you're looking at the ones and the twos and the threes with all of those colors on this map. And that's showing you that from July 1st to July 31st last year, these are the weather stations that broke all of their records for the maximum temperatures for July. So it wasn't just in Arizona, it wasn't just in New Mexico. There were places all across the Southwest that had their hottest July ever on record, or their second or their third. You can see those numbers there as well. So it was exceptional across the Southwest with temperatures. Then with the precipitation then, because we had last winter, so January, February, March of 2023, we were higher precipitation amounts all the way through June. So you can see those colors. We're using those kind of greenish colors to show that the wettest January, it was the 11th wettest January on record. March was the 13th wettest March on record. But then April really dried out. I was surprised to see that May and June started getting some precipitation as well. So we're looking at the Southwest region for that entire year, but looking at each month that happened, and you can see that July just dried out. July was the driest July for the Southwest. It wasn't the driest July for individual states or all of the different counties and so on, but individual weather stations definitely had their driest Julys. And ultimately, looking at the Southwest in general, it was the first driest, so it's the most driest. Then in August, we started getting some tropical remnants coming into mostly California, a little bit in Nevada. Some of that went into Arizona, some of it went into Utah, and a little bit into Colorado. So there was a little bit of that remnant in August and September. The monsoon season started building late August into September, but by then it was too late for activity. And you can see October, November, December, very, very dry. So that's kind of what last year looked like. And now let's kind of continue. What did this year look like? So this January through May, it hasn't been exceptionally hot everywhere, but you can see in New Mexico, the temperatures have been warmer than normal. You see that in Utah, you see that in Colorado, but especially in the Four Corners region, it's been hotter January through May. And precipitation, there was enough precipitation to kind of look about average, maybe a little bit below average in that Four Corners region. You can see New Mexico, in the southeast, definitely still very dry. Arizona started picking up. You can see portions of Colorado, portions of Utah doing a little bit better with the precipitation, and that's January through May. So not too bad with that precipitation, and not bad everywhere with the temperature, but having those hotter temperatures is not a good thing this time of year. But looking at that precipitation that was received, we can kind of look at our soil moisture. So a couple of different maps here. One of those maps is looking at water year precipitation. So we're looking at all of the different basins, the upper Colorado Basin, the lower Colorado Basin, kind of seeing Arizona a little bit easier there. And above that, you can see Utah, but you can see the Four Corners region, and you can see the various different basins and how they handled precipitation, and that's mostly looking at the snowpack. So some places did have good snowpack, and that snowpack kind of persisted. We still got some snow even in April. We were getting snow, so that was an interesting kind of time frame, but it didn't happen everywhere. So you can see, looking at those colors of the various different basins, when they're in the yellow and the orange and the red, those are going to be below 100% median of water year precipitation. Now we're looking here at the other colorful map where you can kind of see the basin names. So we have the little Colorado Basin, Upper San Juan, Lower San Juan, Upper Rio, the headwaters of Rio. So kind of right in through there. What this is showing you with those numbers, they're actually showing you soil moisture at the 8-inch level. So looking at soil moisture as it's ranging from 80 to 100% median for the current time. So I took this on June 1st, end of day, and that's where we're at. So that's not a bad thing. So looking at the precipitation that we received January, February, March in these areas, we still got snowpack that kind of stayed in late April in some places, not every location, but that did help with what's going on with soil moisture, current soil moisture. So you can see it's a little bit, it's at least closer to 100% in a lot of places than it has been. So we're happy to see that. And so then looking at the water year, because we do pay attention to what's been going on in that kind of time structure. So October 1st now through the end of May is where we're at with our water year. And you can see for the Southwest, let's go pop into those Four Corners regions. The water year is definitely been very warm. A lot of that is from last October, November, and December, but the Four Corners region has been much warmer than other parts. And so looking at the precipitation, you can kind of see for the water year, the Four Corners region is below average precipitation. So it's been drier than what it should be. Kind of hard to see when you're seeing those the light brown colors there in the Four Corners area. But what that is saying is that it's below average, upwards of 70% of the amount of expected precipitation for the water year, October 1st through May 30th. So below average. And so then kind of, I think it's helpful to see what we just dealt with in May, because, you know, we've been wet this year so far, and it's been coldish in some places, hottish in other places. So let's just kind of pull it out and look at what May was. I think that's helpful. May was actually colder in most locations, especially in the Four Corners region. But you can see in New Mexico, down in the southeastern corner, really, really dry. That does not bode well. And in central New Mexico there, you can see in that area, doesn't bode well to be that warm. And so when we're looking at how hot those temperatures are, that really dries out the vegetation, and we know that causes problems. Now looking at the precipitation for May, and you've got all of those brown colors, especially in the Four Corners region. You can see it in Arizona. You can see it kind of there in New Mexico and Arizona coming together right in through there. Really, really dry in May, so much below average, and that's going up into the Four Corners region as well. A little bit in Colorado, getting some precipitation, a little bit in Utah, but beyond that, everywhere was really, really dry. What we're looking at then with our drought monitor, you can see that New Mexico, especially in southern New Mexico, you have some extreme and exceptional drought. And we're about to move into dry conditions, hot conditions until we get that monsoon going. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see what we're going to be getting. But you've got severe drought levels in Arizona and New Mexico. In that Four Corners region where you see all of that yellow, that's what we look at as abnormally dry, and that's not considered to be in drought. But it's just that one step away from moving into that moderate drought. And you can see that moderate drought in Colorado and New Mexico right there in that area of the Four Corners region. So hopefully we can get the monsoon season going soon and get that precipitation going. And we are expecting some precipitation in New Mexico this weekend. So hopefully that will help, because when we're looking at how hot and dry it's been, much more so than last year, looking at wildfire preparedness levels, pulling out these areas. So the Southwest area you can see has portions of Arizona and New Mexico, and the Rocky Mountain area has portions of kind of Colorado you're seeing in there. The Rocky Mountain geographic area and as well nationwide is in the current preparedness level of 2. And the Southwest is a little bit more extreme in preparedness level 3. So looking at what's been going on, we've had a lot of activity in Arizona with our wildfire area. When we have a wet winter, which wet-ish winter, that means that we're getting that grass and that brush built up. And so we have a little bit more of fuel available for wildfire activity when we do have those wetter winters. And so kind of looking at the significant wildfire potential over the next 7 days. So we're looking kind of at what was valid for today the Monday, June 3rd. And you can see that New Mexico up into Colorado, a little bit of Utah into Arizona, we're dealing with moderate risk of wildland fire potential. Now, if we pop over to 7 days from now, so Sunday, June 9th, you can see that there's some changes going on in New Mexico and in Arizona, a little bit in Utah, and Colorado looks about the same. And really, that's the expectation for a little bit of precipitation this weekend in some locations. I suspect that's what we're seeing there, is a little bit less of a risk of wildland fire activity in New Mexico, because there's a little bit of precipitation expected. But we do need to pay attention to those what are called dry thunderstorms. So before we get the really active monsoon season going, you can get these thunderstorms. Lightning means that you're going to get with a thunderstorm, and you may not get enough precipitation. So that lightning can spark, can affect what's going on with the fuel for the wildland fires. And then there's not enough precipitation to put it out. And so that's really one of the things to pay attention to. And that's why you're looking kind of at those areas. July, you're seeing in the mostly New Mexico into Colorado that there's above normal significant wildland fire potential. You can see that pulling into August as well, but it kind of dies out in September with the expectation, hopefully, that the monsoon season has come about and started putting out precipitation, or putting that precipitation down. And so looking kind of here at June, here we are with the precipitation outlook, the temperature outlook. And we'll take a look at the monthly temperature outlook. And the way to read these is to kind of, are we above? Are we below? What's the expectation? It's not a forecast for every day or every week. It's kind of like overall what we expect June to look like. And it looks like the expectation is for June to be warmer and to be about average when we're looking at precipitation. So there are equal chances. We could have more precipitation, we could have less precipitation. You can see that in the Four Corners region, that it's equal chances. Now you're going into Colorado, you're going into New Mexico, kind of on the eastern side, and there's a little bit of a better chance for precipitation through there, but we'll have to wait and see. There's no guarantee. But it's better than having that below average in the very likely area. So we'll take it. It's not bad. And then looking at what the monsoon looks like. So June, July, August, definitely hotter. Now, again, I mentioned how we have to get that monsoon ridge. We do have to get it hot in the Four Corners region so that we can build that monsoon ridge, so we can start bringing that moisture in from the Sea of Cortez, the Gulf of Mexico, bringing that moisture in that starts our monsoon season, that activity with our thunderstorms. So, looking at it being hotter than normal, it's been hot. I don't expect it to be as hot as last July, last August. Hopefully those records set last year are limited and we're not going to see them again this year, but it will be hot. So people need to pay attention, make sure everyone is staying hydrated, have access to cool areas for sure. And then looking at our precipitation, it's hard to say. Leaning below average for the season, but we do know we will get some precipitation with our monsoon season. There will be areas that are very active. We just can't say where that's going to occur. We all know that our thunderstorm activity with our monsoon season, the convective thunderstorms, that means that, you may get some precipitation and a mile away, they won't get any precipitation. We do know that it's very spotty with our summer precipitation. So just paying attention to that, I think, is helpful to understand. And then this doesn't necessarily impact and influence what will happen in the Four Corners region as much, but it does play a role with our monsoon activity, perhaps. Not so much with our summer precipitation. Sometimes it might mean that we'll get less activity when we're dealing with this changeover. We're moving from an El Nino into a La Nina. We had 3 La Ninas in a row the previous 3 years. 2 of those summers were wet. So there's no guarantee, but it is important to kind of pay attention to see what we're dealing with overall. The ENSO impacts generally play a role more in our winter precipitation. And so moving into a La Nina winter, the expectation is that it is going to be drier in the southern tier of the United States, but we'll wait and see. But that's what things are looking at right now. And then I think that'll cover everything for kind of the expectations of what we had last year, what we've had so far this year, and kind of what we might expect in the summer. And I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Erin. Can you tell us more about this information you have on here? Is it a monsoon webinar series?
I would like to invite everyone to attend our webinar. I actually have a webinar every month. It's the 3rd Thursday of every month, and it's at 10 a.m. Arizona time. Everyone's welcome. You can pop in. I record it, and then we'll put that out on YouTube. But the one next, well, June 20th, is going to be a discussion about the monsoon this year. So it's great. You can come in and ask us questions. If you have time to join us, we'll answer those questions. But it's going to be a great discussion about the monsoon expectation for the Southwest.
Excellent. And can we find do we have to register for the Zoom webinar there?
You can pop in. So if you go to my website, which is azclimate.asu.edu, there's a link right in there that'll take you right into the webinar. So you won't have to register or anything. You can just pop right in.
Excellent. Are there any questions from participants here today? Erin, earlier you had mentioned it has to be hot during the summer to get that weather, to get some precipitation coming in from the ocean. Like what month would be a good time?
Right. I think that's a great question. And it's a weird thing to understand, but usually we look at June to start getting really hot. Now, I happen to remember when Arizona hit that maximum temperature that we had for Phoenix, which was 122 degrees. That was in June of 1990. And so that June has to get really, really hot. And so we want to see it kind of in the Four Corners region. So I'm kind of circling my cursor around that Four Corners region where we're going to expect above average temperatures, that ridge of high pressure kind of riding through there. Now, if it gets into the wrong position, it's not going to bring that moisture in from the south. And so that becomes a problem. That'll kind of delay things. But yeah, it absolutely has to get hot in June to kind of start building that setup for the monsoon season.
Thank you, Erin. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And once again, we have 3 other webinars, June 10th, July 9th, and July 18th. So come back and join us then. We will be sending out flyers and the registration links for those as well. From our organizers, the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project and the USDA Southwest Climate Hub and the Drought Learning Network. And here you can see our emails. This webinar is recorded and will be posted to the YouTube channels.